All right, joining us are three very special guests. Joining us this moment are Dr. Charan Singh, economist and CEO of eGrow, Dr. Amit Kapoor, economist, and columnist Subimal Bhattacharjee. Dr. Singh, if I can start with you, how would you characterize or describe the budget? Did it tick all the right boxes for you?
Oh, fantastic budget. Fantastic. I would not have expected a better budget than this.
Why do you say
Firstly,
that?
the income tax slab which you mentioned, just imagine the 12 lakh limit is a fantastic limit. And then if you look at various things in the budget, the way it has gone about, firstly it provides continuity in terms of what does it cater to, takes care of the youth, takes care of the women, takes care of the farmer, and now takes care of the poor as well as middle class. And middle class is not that something, of course, I have been saying that there has been some consumption dent up there, and with this 12 lakh thing, that's going to take care. Also, please also remember, we economists have been struggling how to call Viksit Bharat. How would you achieve the limit, threshold limit of an advanced economy of $14,000, where we are just about $2,500 now. But this budget gives you a clean definition of what the government means by Viksit Bharat. We economists have really benefited from that. So they are saying they want zero poverty, they want skilled 100% deployment. For women, they want 70% deployment. They want high quality education system, farmers making good food basket for the world, as well as I think all this put together, healthcare, all this put together defines in a 360 way what Viksit Bharat is. The definition is superb. And then the 10 points on which it says it wants to now carry it out, say MSMEs, or say agriculture sector where you have various schemes which have been announced, on shipbuilding, take anything. Means I have a feeling that this budget is a balanced budget. Over and above this, please remember, this is a slap on the face of rating agencies who always question India and its policy makers. Please remember the glide path continues and the correction on gross fiscal deficit is taking place. Capital expenditure is positive, very well done. The overall, if you look at the overall expenditure pattern, the quality of expenditure has improved. So the tax revenue, of course, the buoyancy is there, which has been explained in the budget speech, as well as in the interview which she gave, the press conference which they gave. The buoyancy is also being conservatively estimated. The exports also taken care. So where would you find a problem in this budget? I also like the way they spoke about investing in people, economy and innovation. And they're also speaking about, and I thought that was very, very good, building rural prosperity and resilience. Agriculture sector has also been focused on, and then nurturing innovation. You know what has happened in the artificial intelligence warfare between America and China, and now they are going to be giving in the Excellence Center for Artificial Intelligence and Innovation, allocating resources. So to my mind, the Amrit Kal budget for India at 2047, this is the right fit. And if year after year, we have a budget positioned exactly like this, taking care of the vulnerable sections and also following the 10 pattern formula, that how are we going to really make them all grow, I think you have done it. It is, we are walking the track very carefully, you walking the talk. So I was very
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Amit Kapoor here as well and get his perspective. Dr. Kapoor, I guess the biggest objective here, or the large-scale objective here, is to spur growth, which is right now the numbers are not as as encouraging as they were some years back, because we're growing around 6.3 to 6.8%. That's the projection for next year, for the coming financial year, for which the budget is. Do you think the steps that have been taken are enough to ensure that India returns to that high rate of growth path that it was on earlier, which it needs to get to that goal of becoming a developed nation by 2047?
So Gautam, we have to answer this question very carefully, because when you say that 6.8% growth, India definitively will grow at 6.8%, but we need to realize that there are severe global headwinds that are going right now. And given those circumstances, especially the wars that have been actually happening, the whole uncertainty on oil prices because of the war, and there are those leftover effects of the pandemic that are coming through. But given that, and the headwinds coming in from how the American policy will shape, given those set of circumstances, I think when India is growing at about 6.8%, I think that's a commendable job. If you really ask me, I don't think India will sustain 6.8% because of the given budget, because the way the government has actually focused on the idea of productivity growth, it will start touching close to about 8% or over 8% over the next 2 to 3 year platform. Because if you really look at the historical antecedents, the budget is a clear reflection of the path that the government has been taking over the last 10 or 12 years, because they've had that continuity in thinking. But from a larger point of view, from a competitiveness viewpoint, improving productivity viewpoint, I think there are 2 or 3 things which are exceedingly important that are reflected within the budget. One is that when you talk about, say, competitiveness, it's about improving the quality of life of people, improving economic benefits to or economic progress of the country. And the budget looks at both of those aspects. And as Charan Singh ji was also saying, that this is a very balanced budget, because the moment you're saying that you're going to have increased spends on health, that means you're trying to recognize the fact that yes, India is needing that health infrastructure, you're going to increase the medical seats, etc. But the most important factor from a comparative news viewpoint and the future viewpoint, the education budget and the scientific department's budget, if you really look at it together, this is a significant chunk that you're really talking about. This is roughly close to about 1,80,000 crores, which is close to about $200 billion kind of a situation. That's a huge amount given what India needs. So you are talking about improving the quality of your skilling, quality of your labor, and that would actually give you a better benefit over a period of time. And similarly, I think there is a larger thinking as I see within this budget, and that is that if India wants to be an innovation-driven economy, and how do we really tackle or push forth the innovation engine? This is where you're talking about our tinkering labs. I am so absolutely positive on that, because the future lies with the younger generation, and what the government is trying to do here is that focus on that youth and try to enable them to actually innovate and move forward. And you cannot ignore the fact that given the kind of AI developments that are happening, the government has also announced that there would be an AI mission. So you are spending 500 crores. Of course, from my point of view, that is fairly less amount of money, but the private sector should pull in. The government has done its part here, but I think the corporate sector will have to do its part now. Because, like when we talk about the budget, everything seems to be, government has to do everything. No, I think this is where the responsibility of the corporations also become very, very clear, that you have to move towards innovation, value capture, value-driven strategies, and that is what you would have to look at. Government has done its bit. In fact, the other thing which I feel is very important from an economic and social progress point of view is the kind of focus that you're having on rural development. There is a clear understanding that India is urban as well as rural. And you are talking about a rural development budget, which is close to about 2,66,000 crores. The urban development budget is close to about 97,000 crores. You are recognizing that both these are going to be the engines of growth. Urbanization is going to be important. You are continuing with certain set of things there. And then when you talk about competitiveness as well, it's about movement of land, labor, capital, etc. And all those things have got enhanced over a period of time. Infrastructure will enable it. You're talking about financial instruments which could be beneficial for the MSMEs, and that is where it is. I don't think we could have asked for more. Just as an academic, I would like to say that, okay, if I have to score it on a scale of 10, I'll possibly give it a 9, because maybe there is something that was possibly left out. But I think overall a fairly great budget for the future of the country.
Fair enough. 9 on 10, says Dr. Kapoor. Mr. Bhattacharya, let me get you in on the discussion. Now, Dr. Kapoor referred to AI. So let me ask you this. As someone who has an abiding interest in all things IT, what did you make of the budget's focus on issues such as deep tech, expanding the capacity of IITs and other institutions, startups, entrepreneurship, and also this focus on nuclear energy? We are told, and correct me if I'm wrong, AI is an energy guzzler.
Mr. Ramachandran, thank you for bringing me in. I think this budget is very clear about the focus on technology. And this is not any knee-jerk reaction to what has been happening in the last few days around the DeepSeek's impact all around the globe. So a larger part of the whole effort of the government in the last 10 years has been to see how much of technology you bring in governance. How do you get your startup ecosystem running around technology? And how do you look to the forward and build the strengths within the country in terms of Atmanirbharta, where technology gets into many various sectors? So I think, as you mentioned those areas, in almost every area the budget has made a focus. The budget allocation for the Indian AI mission, the allocation for cybersecurity, under CERT, the focus on looking at the modified program for the development of semiconductors and display manufacturing ecosystem, getting the semiconductor fabs in India, the modification in that. So I think the focus is very, very clear. Maybe the budget allocation would be far much more in terms of expectation from the industry. But I would also go by my previous panelist saying that even the private sector has to come and put in money, when such kind of wider support is being provided from the government in terms of policy and a very clear direction that all areas of technology find attention. So I think this is a very good budget from that perspective, that the direction is very, very clear. The focus on skilling is there. The focus on getting the Atal Tinkering Labs to much larger numbers is there across the country. The Center of Excellence in Artificial Intelligence for Education, all three of them getting good outlays, maybe even more outlay will come in as a need be. And the whole purpose of the national cause of getting into the bandwagon of all technology in all areas, so that ultimately getting the people's budget activated, I think that has been seen. So I would be very, very happy to see that while the government provides the support, the private sector also comes in, the investments come in, the startups do a far much more optimal job. There is no reason that we would be left behind in the tech sector, because this sector is growing at such a pace that even the large players globally are also now under certain kind of recalibrations, and that's the point of time where we have the strength and resources within the country. So if they are channelized well, possibly we are in a far much better position in the coming period of time.
Okay, let me go back to Dr. Singh on that topic of the tax relief that has been given. Particularly, it's being set to be aimed at the middle class. Dr. Singh, to what extent do you think that this will be a relief, not just for the middle class, but for the economy as a whole? Because there is a certain amount of presumption that all the revenue that the government is foregoing, about 1.1 lakh crores, will be spent, and which is why you see stocks of consumer-oriented companies and auto companies, perhaps some of them two-wheelers, going up today. But will it all be driven towards spending more, or will the middle class want to save more as well at the same time? And in any case, there aren't too many taxpayers in India. About 1.6% people paid taxes, direct taxes in 2023. So what sort of an impact could it have on economic activity as a whole in the country, domestic economic activity?
So before I answer your question, if you permit me, I just want to strike a continuity with my previous answer and what was made by Amit. See, the point I want to make is we are growing around 6.4% in the current year. We are aiming at 6.3 to 6.8 in the next year. The budget documents assume a growth rate of 10.1%, I think, which is a reasonable good. But I think we'll do much more than that. That's my feeling. My feeling is because, yes, at this point of time when the projections are being made and when the Trump administration is just settling in, there seems to be immense uncertainty in the world. Not only we, the Fed Reserve itself said that they are very uncertain about what's going to happen to tariffs, what's going to happen to immigration, their fiscal policy and all that. In these circumstances, making a budget which is this size. I also would like to mention, given our tax collection, which is about 17% of GDP, lowest amongst major countries, America is 35%, Sweden is around 40%. Given our tax to GDP ratio, whatever best we could do, we have done it. We are walking the talk. This is the best we could do. And in these circumstances, credit and congratulations to the finance minister and her team who have really put all this in order. Now, in these circumstances, because there has been a little setback, the second quarter recorded a growth of 5.4% in GDP, disappointing all of us. Something had to be done. When you looked at the reasons given were that the middle class is suffering and therefore consumption is not taking place. Because consumption is not taking place, production is not taking place. Now what have they done? They have exactly targeted and tackled that issue. By providing this relief to the middle class, they are saving them 80,000 rupees. Moment they save them 80,000 rupees, what could happen? As you mentioned, they could probably spend it. They could spend it on children's education, on health, on food, on protein diet, on traveling. They could spend it. If it's spent, it enters the cycle of growth. So you will have to have more manufacturing. Demand has been generated. More manufacturing, the economy starts rolling. Suppose they save it. Moment they save it, it will come into the banking system. Again, the banks are going to invest it in infrastructure. So the cycle continues. So to my mind, what is going to happen? The tax foregone is 1 lakh crore. But no, it's not going to give back the system it's going to give much more than 1 lakh crore.
Okay.
The reason, once the production starts, manufacturing starts, on the other hand, you are constantly giving a push to the economy through your capital expenditure, which is increasing. That's going to crowd it in. The demand is increasing. The private sector is going to get incentivized to come and now produce. So the multiplier effect of this enhanced tax slab or the tax foregone is going to be much more than what we are anticipating. This multiplier effect will not only increase growth, it will also increase employment, as I mentioned, and it should take the growth figure to much more than 6.8%. Which are the categories, which are the industries which could benefit? To my mind, directly, it will benefit the MSMEs. Because moment it benefits the MSMEs, as the FM also mentioned in a speech, MSMEs have such beautiful forward-backward linkages in our country. There are about 6 crore of them. They account for a massive chunk of production and export. All this then starts moving. Moment you say that we are going to push our MSMEs to a great extent, you have sustained further demand. So the cycle starts. That's how I am looking at it.
Right, Dr. Kapoor, if I may build on Dr. Singh's argument there, what struck me in particular was the manner in which Minister Sitaraman categorically said at the beginning of a news conference this afternoon, if I can paraphrase her, she said it's not as if there is no thirst for capex. She says there's been no reduction in capex. How do you think she's walked this fine balance between capex and consumption? You think she's betting on consumption in the near term?
So I think I have to go back to what Charan Singh was saying, like the multiplier of the tax foregone. Because when we're talking about the multiplier, the minimum multiplier on consumption is at least 3 times. So that means we talk about direct, indirect, or induced impact. It is going to be at least 3 times of tax collection, additive tax collection in terms of GST from what has actually been foregone. So that means there is absolutely no way that this is going to have a detrimental impact on the spends or the capital expenditure that the government was actually looking at doing. Rather, it is a very positive thing to do, because if you really look at it, as India improves its sophistication of demand, it means that you are going to ask for more or better products. MSMEs will become more innovative. They'll start trying to give better products to the country. And that is what is going to drive innovation, capacity building, job creation, and so on and so forth. So if you really look at it overall, I really don't think that it is a balance. I think it's a very, very smart economic strategy to really follow. I think hats off to the finance minister, and especially say Anand Nageshwaran as well. He's actually talked about all these things in the economic survey as well, wherein he says that it has to be people centric. We have to move people around. And when you talk about those four pillars, like that was poor, youth, farmers, and women, all of them benefit with these set of what I call tax slab cuts that you're actually seeing. Because if you really look at a simple additive thing here, it is phenomenal. And I think where there are going to be various sectors, especially if you talk about FMCG products, if you really talk about travel, if you talk about tourism, people will start spending money on this. And there is, and on this itself, if you really look at it, the government has also announced tourism hubs within the country as well. So if you really look at the kind of activities that will spawn out of this in the local regions, in terms of say local tourism hubs or local tourism destinations, to what it does to those nearby districts. A very simple example I must share here. When you talk about a place like say Prayagraj, the per capita income for Prayagraj is close to about 55,000 rupees as of now. But what does Kumbh do to the economic activity out there is something very phenomenal. It does it to Chitrakoot as well, it does it to Ayodhya. So what we are seeing is that those multipliers will see. Kevadia is a great example of how multiplier efforts or effects happen when people start spending on tourism. That place has created close to about 40,000 jobs, 100,000 people visit that location every day, and so on and so forth. So I think overall, this is a phenomenal exercise, a very smart economic strategy for the long term. And I think this should continue. I would rather think that, like this lab might even get rationalized as we go further and as we grow economically.
Right. And Shubhamal, do you see this sort of a multiplier coming into play where India's tech advancement is also concerned, particularly when you talk about spending money in schools to boost the broadband network or in Atal tinkering labs? Do you think that coming into play in the coming years? It might not be immediate, but it will come in by the time we need it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the wider canvas that is laid out clearly demonstrates an opportunity where there is a cascading activity in on all the ancillary or the surrounding areas. Now, when you are looking at giving 10,000 more fellowships in IIT and the IISc, or even looking at a kind of fund of funds for startups and everything, and so for that you'd require more skilling efforts to be undertaking. The moment you take the skilling efforts, then you'll be requiring more number of teachers and capable people to do the training. Look at more models and softwares and all kinds of teaching tools. So I think in many areas you basically go and hit and at the same time improve. See, we are at a point of time where the nation is taking off on many fronts. We realize very clearly that in all these strategic areas we have to build our own strength. Whether it is AI in defense, whether it is AI in agricultural capability building. I think in all of that we are now very clear that we'll have to build up our own stories. The defense story in the last few years has been very successful. It's a very long game, but even in that short period of time, what we have been able to do is we have been able to generate a lot of MSMEs in the sector that are now providing in tier 2 and tier 1 in a few cases the supplies. Secondly, we are able to get into the export horizon. Defense exports from India was almost zero when Prime Minister Modi took over. Today we are significantly exporting and also. And in most areas of defense today, the infusion of technology is taking the capability of the weapons as well as the equipment to different levels, and all of that you require skills that are more or less around the digital technology. So each and every aspect, Gautam, we are touching in some way or the other, and that has this cascading effect across sectors. So somewhere we might be visibly seeing a great success story manifested, but in the larger part as a nation, we are building up capabilities to go in many directions. With all the strategic fight now going on the artificial domain and the large language models that are coming up to be able to give the force multiplier effect. I think that's also something that we have already, shown our not only intent but actually announced with funding and now the announcement about more than 18,000 GPUs available for us. So in the next few years, we are going to go hammer and tong in quite a big way in terms of not only boosting the skills but also getting our own models in place to be able to support any kind of R&D activity and put it to manufacturing, production, co-production, all of that stuff. Parallelly, we are also doing all our efforts about partnerships, whether it is the US or France or even Russia and all strategic areas of defense. We have those partnerships also where in many cases we are also getting transfer of technology, but at the same time, because now as a policy we force them to do co-production in India and all, we are also building up our local capabilities and at the same time getting newer skills into the system. So the young population that we have, the 65% of the population before 35 years who are aspiring, for good jobs and everything, I think we are also little by little but very steadily getting the skilling required for being able to get them gainful employment. So all of these things, I think in the larger story, builds up a great national picture which will build up our capabilities far much than we would have anticipated even a decade back.
All right, Mr. Bhattacharjee, Dr. Singh, Dr. Kapoor, do stay on. We'll come back to you momentarily. Let me pull up some more news for our viewers. Now, in response to the Budget 2025, industry stalwarts have expressed optimism about the government's tax cut plans, anticipating a boost in disposable income and consumer spending.
Oh yes, executives from automotive and consumer sectors particularly believe that these measures will stimulate economic growth. Here are some of those reactions.
The Union Budget 2025-26 has been hailed as a game changer, reinforcing the vision of a developed India with a sharp focus on the middle class, MSMEs, private investments, and job creation.
They have given a fabulous budget. They have given money in the hands of middle class, which was the need of the hour. I think this will help in boosting the overall GDP growth rate of the country.
The budget's increased allocation for food processing has drawn praise, recognizing its crucial role in boosting farm incomes and employment.
Setting up the Institute for Food Processing is a good positive move. Having export missions to identify crops for export is a good thing.
Business leaders have praised the increased allocation for green energy in Budget 2025. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman has raised the allocation for new and renewable energy in budget for 2025-26 by 9,251 crore rupees to 26,549 crore rupees.
When it comes to the core sector and sectors like green and sustainable energy, I think there's a very interesting thing she's talked about, which is improving the grid infrastructure and supporting that, and also for the DISCOMs, to get more funding and financing into that sector. So I think with T&D improving, that allows for more uptake of green energy into the national grid.
The government has also introduced a comprehensive clean tech manufacturing support program, exempting customs duty on 35 capital goods for EV battery productions, while boosting domestic manufacturing of key EV components, a move welcomed by industry leaders.
This budget is a commendable step as an enabler towards notable push towards clean tech and EV growth, as highlighted by the Honorable FM.
Meanwhile, the surge in the capital expenditure allocation is expected to have a multiple effect on the economy, further driving growth and investment.
Capex has the multiplier effect, so we are quite happy that the government is continuing with that journey of focusing on the Capex.
With the strategic focus on infrastructure, sustainability, and industry, Budget 2025-26 sets the stage for long-term economic transformation. Bureau Report, DT India.
So the industry hunches are pretty upbeat about the prospects of their businesses following this budget. We'll be talking about how things are going to be impacted through this budget later on in our show as well. We're taking a quick break and thanking our guests for the moment, Dr. Charan Singh, CEO eGrow, as well as Dr. Amit Kapoor, senior economist, and Shubham Bhattacharya as well, noted IT expert and columnist. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back very quickly. Stay with us.